market's sort of down. Bitcoin's below 90,000. SPY is indestructible, but a lot of other weakness in some other stocks. Yeah, I see the Oklo news too. IONQ is tomorrow for anybody. There seems to be some confusion. It's not today. Yeah, we got some MicroStrategy shorts in the house. I don't know if Rigetti's going to issue shares, but that would not be positive for the space. It is a little surprising that none of the companies have issued shares. Yeah, I guess somebody hacked SBF. Number 66.4. A while back, I thought they would do 62.9. Pretty bullish. So they did 66.4. What are they? Are they giving any guidance? Maybe they give guidance on the call. Yeah, HIM's like doubled. So not HIM's, Tarsus. Yeah, I've got my eyes on the quantum stocks as usual. I don't know if it's a great ETF if it's trading for more than the amount of Bitcoin they own. All right, let's look at some drug stocks. Let's look at something I haven't looked at in a while. GSK or Regeneron? Let's look at Regeneron. Yeah, I wonder if that acquisition is going to give them some like potential revenue, fake revenue. Is Levi and Korsinski using multiple newswires? You guys are all over the tape. It's really annoying. Rosen. How are you supposed to read the news if all it is lawsuits? We fixed this once and it reverted when we upgraded news. And this is a problem with every other. Yeah, I heard about the Y Combinator thing. I mean, sweatshop SaaS software doesn't seem like a great idea, but Steve Cohen yesterday said that the market was overvalued and he was negative. He said that tariffs.
This is one of those moments where there's really a lot of uncertainty, and I have pretty strong views here. When you take a brew of tariffs.
It's a brew, okay? It's a brew.
I mean, tariffs cannot be positive, okay? I mean, it's a tax. And you can imagine, and it may only last a year or so, but it's definitely a period where I think the best gains have been had, and
many
wouldn't
brews.
surprise me to see a significant correction.
All right, so there you go. Steve Cohen says there'll be a significant correction. Not a man I would bet against. I covered my hymns at like 40 spot 20, and it's at 39 spot 10. At least I sold it and went short during the call when they said they're not going to do Ozempic anymore. That was pretty cringe. MicroStrategy, worth nothing. Well, it's technically called strategy now, so yeah. Does that include debt? You want their debt too? I mean, they're corporate finance people. Yeah, last I looked at convertible debt, pretty sure it only converts at a higher price. So as it goes down, it becomes more debt-like as the stock price goes down. And as the stock price goes up, it becomes more equity-like. But it looks like the stock price is going down. So that's debt. I got to pay it back with cash money. Yeah, Tableau has crushed them. Having your earnings even in March is kind of cringe. Like, no real company would wait till March 5th to report their December earnings. They were previously just basically not even reporting. IONQ is in talks to buy. I know people were trying to get my attention on this earlier. I'm sorry, I apologize. But yeah, IONQ is in talks to buy ID Quantique for $250 million. So that's going to be dilutive, right? I guess they're going to quantum safe network encryption. It's a stock. It's a payment in stock. So I mean, if they're basically saying we'll give up our stock for somebody else's company, they're just telling you that their stock is overvalued. Yeah, it could be a good deal. No doubt about it. Quantum safe crypto. Well, I mean, when they do the deal, they're gonna have to say how much revenue they've generated. If they had 12.6 in revenue, they're paying $250 for that. I don't know if that 12 number is correct, by the way. Yeah, exactly, Trip. But people have to actually deploy it, and I think it's easier to find a vendor. But it's like, this is one of their investors. I can ask around too, but I guess SK Telecom was supposed to have bought them out. So, well, we'll see if they announce a deal. So my guess is they announce the deal. I wonder if they're trying to announce the deal at the same time of their earnings tomorrow. That sounds about right. Yeah, maybe they're trying to. Let's look at most real quick. Okay, most traded NVIDIA, 14 million shares. Palantir, Supermicro, HIMS, NEO, Alibaba Big Bear, wow. Paycor, which we should look at. Tempest, Marathon Digital, 𝗤𝗓𝗄 Corp, Apple, and Rigetti below the top 10 there. Very interesting. Tesla, Robinhood, Inari, Lucid, Lee, Intel, Archer Aviation, MicroStrategy, D-Wave, all the way to the bottom. SoundHound AI, Amazon, CleanSpark, and that's that. Gainers, EverQuote, DigitalOcean, the cloud company, Lincoln Educational, Precigen, Adapt Health, Faro, Apollomics, Canadian Goose, or Canada Goose, Bicara Therapeutics, Dreamfinder Homes, Sealed Air, Grail, up 10%, Bicycle Therapeutics, Arbutus, which we mentioned yesterday. Losers, Krispy Kreme Donuts down 25%, Myriad Genetics down 25%, Ultra Clean Holdings down 20%, BitDeer down 20%, HIMS down 20%, as we know, Sempra, Tempest AI down 15%, Media Alpha, Clean Energy Fuels, HUT 8%. Value, NVIDIA's traded a couple billion, so is Tesla, Berkshire, Palantir, Apple around $1 billion, MicroStrategy down 5%. Big loss there. Our little Humacyte trickling down to almost 2 digits, $2. So really down there. BBAI recovering here, maybe the dead cat bounce up to $6 or getting a second wind, either way. NVIDIA down, which I think is a change. NVIDIA had been sort of the stalwart and seeing some weakness ahead of the quarter. Tomorrow could be concerning. Yeah, I wonder on IONQ if they announce this acquisition, company's got some revenue, and they give a forecast that includes that revenue. What does that kind of look like? And the thing I'll say, though, is whatever they're doing with this company, it's not quantum computing. So, they're basically saying we're diversifying out of quantum computing into something else. And I think it's very telling that they can spend $250 million on anything, and they've decided not to do something in quantum computing. They decided to sort of lean into kind of this very trad, futuristic at all technology. I mean, I think that's kind of bearish. It's technically bullish for them in the sense that they'll be left with something at the end, but it's what I would do if I were them. But that's just to salvage, a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of value. So they see the writing on the wall. But yeah, Bitcoin down pretty substantially here, down to 89,000. HIMS at 40.5. There's nothing juicy about Chegg. Chegg's got some serious problems. I don't think there's anything to buy. I mean, the market's not really, S&P is flat. It's just our shorts that are down, which is what we've been waiting for. Isn't this what we've been waiting for? We got it cracked. You told us already. You bought out of the money MicroStrategy puts. Good luck. There's HIMS going back up. I'm glad I covered it. I've been trading that thing like a schizophrenic. Long, short, long, short. That at the first, the laser pointer was really mysterious and kind of crazy. And now it's well, she knows what it is. You got it. Yeah, I don't think IONQ should be doing a dilutive acquisition that's outside of their core competency. I can't see that as bullish. And it's not a small amount, 250 million. I mean, it's not that much either. I do think IONQ is going to go under 10, yeah. I mean, IONQ is worth less than 10. It's worth the same amount as Rigetti. I don't have a position in Palantir, but it looks attractive.
Order filled.
I'd be long. Oh, Palantir short. Okay, yeah, no, good call. Well, Palantir had look, Palantir, remember, you get momentum. You can hedge momentum. You can short Tempest or something, right? You can short HIMS. Look at the deltas. Now, those two just reported, but, there are ways to say, okay, long Palantir, short Tesla. Long Palantir, short MicroStrategy. There's a lot of stuff you can do to squeeze out that alpha. You don't have to just look at the absolute. Yeah, you don't ever quote a sales multiple again. Whenever I hear somebody quote a sales multiple, I just shudder. Look at free cash flow. Price to sales is just useless, period. Free cash flow excludes stock-based comp. Stock-based comp is not a cash-based expense. Only if the options are in the money, and you can expense them on their Black-Scholes cost or something. You don't have to. They're also generally one-time cost. When a company settles out and gets very big, they can just do cash expenses. You have to scale adjust earnings regardless. Steve Cohen sell-off. Yeah, You can't seriously think that today's margins for a company in a hyper growth period are relevant. You're LARPing, you're coping that the company has gigantic revenue growth. Scale, I mean, when you're growing like that, you're investing. You're overspending. And when your company reaches closer to a steady state, then you worry about your margin structure. You ever run a company, you know this. No, when you're really growing fast, you're going to spend you're going to have some expenses that are just not going to happen once you get bigger. Or they're just not going to scale the same way once you get bigger. The company's still growing very rapidly, so I'm talking about Palantir. It's almost completely a software company. Consulting is a very small sort of part of that. Yeah, I mean, just look at the gross margins. Gross margins always matter, of course. Palantir has high gross margins. I mean, look, I'm not saying I run my company like that, but it's a strategy. It's worked. It's worked for a lot of companies, including Amazon and others. Yeah, gross margin's 80%. They've accelerated their growth 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 quarters in a row. Their growth rate has gone up. That's pretty unprecedented. They're doing something right. Assuming that continues, I mean, $5 billion in revenue should be in the bag. I mean, it's certainly not cheap, but it's people believe in Karp, and if they can grow like this for some years to come, it's not overvalued. They really do have to find a path to 10 billion in revenue. Right now they're around 4 billion. So can they go from 4 billion in revenue to 10 billion in revenue? Seems like that's something this management team can do. They're pretty smart. If you think their growth is going to grind to a halt, it's going to be a great short. I mean, listen, part of what you're looking at for a company like this is, I think they do have a moat for what it's worth, but I think it's more than just, do they have a moat? I think it's also, can management deliver new products that will grow the business? And if you're around the Peter Thiel, Joe Lonsdale type of world, that, these guys are constantly working on new products and they'll find a way to keep growing. Now, maybe they won't. And the stock's a great short. And the stock's already pricing in that they'll do that to a large extent. So, if they go from 4 billion to just 8 billion in a couple of years, it'll be relatively disappointing. If they go from 4 billion to 12 billion, I think the stock's probably got upside. So it's basically just like any other company. It's a management trust question. Can you actually trust Bone Crusher? Can you trust that they'll do bone crushing revenue growth? And, you're always functionally trusting management and betting on management in most companies. Now, especially growth companies, you are literally, saying, I trust that these guys will find a way to grow. I don't even know what that way is going to be, but I trust that it's going to happen. And that's, it's quite a leap of faith, that you take when you do these kinds of investments. Whereas some of the other kind of investing you can do, like value investing, it doesn't really matter if management's that creative. No, a 20% revenue grower that's consistent 20% revenue growth is worth over 100 times cash flow, over 100 times earnings. I mean, that's just the nature of PE. It's it's not a very good metric because it doesn't really sort of incorporate a little compounding at all, especially high compounding. Because if you're growing revenue 20%, they're growing revenue 40%, mind you. So if you're growing revenue 20%, you're going to be growing earnings at least 30 or 40%. Forward PE is better than backward PE, but you still have to go forward as many years as you can, and that's not always easy. I mean, look, forecasting is just hard, period. I mean, certainly you want to be long a company that's going to grow revenue very quickly for a long time. I mean, if you ask Buffett, he'll tell you that compounding is just so you catch up very quickly. Oh my gosh, I have a million PE ratio or something like that. A couple years of 40% revenue growth, you're talking about potentially compounding earnings by 100%. A couple of years, 4x your earnings. I don't care what your PE is, you're starting to look attractive after enough years of doing that. PE matters to a value investor to a certain extent. It depends on the company. PE breaks down very quickly when you're looking at a hypergrowth company. I define hypergrowth as anything sort of more than 20%. Because one, I mean, talking about sales growth, by the way, sales growth is less than earnings growth always. So you have earnings growth that's well above usually 20%. So PE is just too static of a figure to incorporate and approximate long-term earnings, because long-term earnings is a real big moving target. PE is really good when the earnings aren't changing much. Now you're basically valuing a bond at that point. But I mean, if they can grow spaghetti, I think the challenge for NVIDIA is a lot of people don't think they're going to grow. A lot of people think it's all over. Some people think we're so back. Some people think it's all over. So if NVIDIA is going to grow 50% earnings for the next few years, it's a screaming buy. Well, I think you have to have some vision towards earnings. I mean, I do think that, the Cathie Wood style investor is just sort of thinking about all that matters is that revenue growth. As long as that revenue growth's above 20, 30, 40%, the stock's a buy no matter what. And obviously that's just fallacious on its face. I mean, there's just no mathematical reason why that'd be the case, right? There's always kind of an approximate of, all right, this is too much. And while I think some people think that's the case for Palantir, like I said, 2025 revenue will probably be somewhere close to 4 billion and probably run rate well over that at the end of the year. So, if you think the company will double revenue over time, which is almost certain, they'll probably do that pretty quickly. You're paying, around 40 times for Palantir if you have a truly visionary company that's going to keep growing long term. The theory is this is going to be like an Oracle or an SAP or like a Salesforce. Now, it's already got the valuation of those companies to some extent. If you can get, to a 300 or 400 billion cap, like an Oracle or something, that's the goal of Palantir. But, look, I'm not long it, but if I had to trade it, I'd probably be long. And then if I had to short other things against it, I could probably hedge out most of the momentum and capture some alpha. Look, it's been a great ride for the people who've been in early. I'm just saying you have to be open-minded about growth stocks, and I'm a value guy. I'm a very traditional value guy, but investors like Lone Pine and Viking, they've shown that you can be a value investor in growth stocks. They bought Google at the IPO. And if whatever your investing framework is called, value, growth, your own special method, the Nibbles method, it doesn't matter what you call it. But if your method would have stopped you from buying Google in 2005, that's a bad method. You want the method that would have had you buying Google in 2005 and 6, buying Facebook in 2009 and 10. You want the method that did that. And a lot of the methods I'm hearing from you guys, they're fine, but they're too Graham and Dodd. They're too Graham and Dodd to really work. Look, you're sort of curve fitting to a certain extent that my method has to get me all the growth winners, but not get me the losers. And yeah, it's a discriminator, with a really good, sort of assay and sort of ROC, if you know diagnostics. It's just not that simple, unfortunately. And we all know that, right? It'd be amazing if we could buy all the growth stocks that make money and avoid the ones that suck, and buy all the value stocks that are cheap and defensive. We all want that. But, the reality is it's just not. There's no investing method that gets it all right. But I don't want to miss the next Google because, the PE is too high. It's a contrived nonsense. Yeah, I think quant's kind of going to eliminate traditional investing to a certain extent. I think we all have to join the computer revolution. Yeah, I'm trying to blow your mind right now. But, one of the things that's also important to have in investing is conviction. Your method might be an old crotchety value investor that smells bad, but if you stick to it and you hone it, that's not the end of the world. You got conviction and you have a method, good. That's okay. I think that's better than not applying your method correctly and changing your mind every 2 seconds. Conviction and consistent application. This really does go hard. I mean, this will be in textbooks for like our grandkids. How crazy is that? It's like, this should give you chills, you know, obviously not the bag holder quotes thing, but I love how it's a stock chart going down with GME and AMC. Whoever does this, like, I want to, like, they just do it for the lulz, I think, but like, whoever does this graphic design is great. But no, the real story is just surreal. We still don't know anything about the shooter, bro. Like, why did he do it? What was his story? And the fact that Trump's instincts were to get up and say fight, any of these other guys would have been ducking. Trump wanted to smoke. He was like, what? I think you can cover some if you're up a ton. I mean, Bitcoin's probably going to bounce at some point, like 75K. But regardless, we'll look at a palace. I promise. You know, look, I mean, the market's very unstable right now. You can see the gigantic moves in stocks, this re-rating, you know, momentum regime change, where everyone's hunkering down and de-risking. I mean, getting out of things like Bitcoin, you know, perfectly, you know, any excuse to sell perfectly good company stock that have risen a lot, just raise cash. I mean, I think everyone's really scared NVIDIA bad tomorrow. I mean, that's really the main fear. If NVIDIA is anything short of a disaster, the market will go up. If NVIDIA isn't, the print doesn't look good, I mean, we could see a crash. It's like Santa Claus isn't real. If NVIDIA disappoints, it's basically Santa Claus isn't real. Yeah, James, that's the fear, right? Is that if they beat, which they might not, we don't know yet, but guide down, yeah, it's not good. Big Pharma is generally immune, but not totally immune. I mean, in 08, Big Pharma sold off pretty hard. Venus doesn't have revenue. What's a biotech company? How do they have revenue? What are they, stupid? Exactly. Give me attention. Nah, not that much. I made baggies. I made money on hymns. Did you? Did you buy hymns? Did you not sell when I told you to sell? Marco Polo. Once they said no more semaglutide, they tucked it in right at the end. They gave that long, boring conference call, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to sell Ozempic anymore. You're like, what? Who? Banco Santander. He goes, ¿qué? In French, BNP Paribas, quoi? I bought it 42, sold it 42, shorted it at 42. Now check the price. Any of you people disrespecting me, you couldn't be my junior analyst assistant. You couldn't get that dude coffee, let alone come work for me.